There was a time when glowing neon signs, hot coffee, and small roadside diners became part of everyday American life. Long before fast food chains took over the country, millions of people gathered inside quiet diners for warm homemade meals served on heavy plates beside the sound of coffee pouring and rain tapping against windows late at night. Some of those recipes became legendary. Others slowly disappeared over time. Tonight, we're going back to the forgotten diner recipes of old America. And few diner meals became more comforting than a hot patty melt served beside fresh coffee late at night. Long before giant fast food chains covered American highways, small roadside diners served simple homemade meals that became part of everyday life across the country. And few diner recipes became more iconic than the patty melt. At first glance, the dish looks simple: a hamburger patty, melted cheese, grilled onions, toasted bread. But inside old American diners during the 1940s and 1950s, meals like this became symbols of comfort, routine, and late-night conversation. The patty melt was especially popular because it combined two foods Americans already loved, hamburgers and grilled sandwiches, into one hot, filling meal that could be prepared quickly on a flat-top grill behind crowded diner counters. Truck drivers ordered them late at night while traveling across state highways. Factory workers stopped for them before sunrise after long shifts. Teenagers shared booths beneath neon lights while jukeboxes played softly in the background beside endless cups of coffee. And unlike modern fast food, diner meals often felt personal. Every small diner prepared patty melts slightly differently. Some added extra onions slowly caramelized in butter. Others used rye bread for deeper flavor. Certain diners became locally famous for their secret sauces or perfectly crisp grilled bread. The smell itself became unforgettable: butter sizzling on the grill, onions cooking slowly beside beef patties, fresh coffee filling the room while rain tapped against glowing diner windows after dark. For many Americans growing up during that era, the patty melt became more than just a sandwich. It became part of the atmosphere of old roadside America itself. And even today, recipes like this still feel timeless because they remind people of a slower world built around small diners, warm food, and conversations that lasted longer than the meals themselves. To recreate a traditional patty melt today, you would need ground beef, rye bread, Swiss or American cheese, onions, butter, salt, black pepper. First, slice the onions thinly and cook them slowly in butter until soft, golden, and slightly sweet. Then season the beef with salt and pepper and shape it into thin patties. Cook the patties on a hot pan or griddle until browned. Butter the bread lightly and place cheese, beef, and onions between the slices before grilling the sandwich slowly until crispy and golden on both sides. The cheese should melt completely while the bread develops a rich, buttery crust. Simple, savory, comforting. A diner classic once served across thousands of glowing roadside restaurants during the golden age of old America. And maybe that's why recipes like this still feel timeless today. But while patty melts became famous across roadside diners and late-night highways, other diner recipes quietly became comfort food for entire generations of American families. Long before trendy cafes and gourmet sandwiches became popular across America, small diners quietly turned simple pantry ingredients into some of the country's most comforting meals. And few diner sandwiches became more unexpectedly beloved than the tuna melt. At first glance, the recipe sounded almost too simple to become famous. Canned tuna, mayonnaise, cheese, bread. But during the 1940s and 1950s, meals like this became incredibly popular inside diners because they were inexpensive, filling, and easy to prepare quickly during busy lunch and dinner hours. Many small diners served tuna melts to factory workers, office employees, traveling salesmen, and families looking for warm, affordable meals during difficult post-war years. Unlike heavier burgers or fried dinners, the tuna melt felt lighter while still comforting enough to satisfy people after long days of work. And over time, it slowly became part of classic American diner culture itself. Every diner prepared them differently. Some added chopped celery or onions for texture. Others focused on thick melted cheese and buttery grilled bread. Certain diners became famous locally for serving enormous tuna melts beside fries, pickles, and endless cups of coffee late into the night. The smell alone became deeply nostalgic for many Americans. Butter sizzling on flat-top grills, bread turning golden brown, melted cheese slowly dripping into warm tuna filling while neon lights reflected against rainy diner windows after sunset. For many older Americans, the tuna melt still represents quiet evenings inside booths, casual conversations, and roadside diners glowing softly beside empty highways. And unlike many forgotten diner foods, tuna melts never completely disappeared. But the slower homemade versions once served inside old diners feel very different from the fast modern versions people know today, because older diner cooking focused less on speed and more on warmth, comfort, and atmosphere. To recreate a traditional diner-style tuna melt today, you would need canned tuna, mayonnaise, celery, onion, cheddar or American cheese, bread, butter, and black pepper. First, combine the tuna with mayonnaise, finely chopped celery, onion, and black pepper inside a bowl. Butter the bread lightly and place the tuna mixture generously between slices together with cheese. Cook the sandwich slowly on a hot pan or griddle until golden brown on both sides and fully melted inside. The bread should become crisp and buttery while the cheese melts into the warm tuna filling. Some diners served tuna melts beside tomato soup or pickles. Others paired them with fries and coffee late at night beneath glowing neon signs. Simple, warm, comforting. A diner classic that quietly became part of everyday American life during the golden age of roadside restaurants. And maybe that's why recipes like this still feel strangely comforting decades later. But while sandwiches and coffee became part of everyday diner life, some of the most unforgettable diner meals were much larger, heavier, and impossible to forget once they arrived at the table. Long before fast food drive-thrus covered American highways, roadside diners across Texas and the South became famous for serving enormous homemade meals designed to keep people full for entire days of hard physical work. And few diner dishes became more legendary than chicken fried steak. Despite the name, the recipe contains no chicken at all. Instead, tenderized beef steak was coated in seasoned flour, fried until golden and crispy, then covered generously in thick country gravy. The dish became especially popular throughout Texas and Southern diners during the early and mid-1900s, where large, hearty breakfasts and comfort food meals were deeply connected to farming, ranch work, and long, exhausting labor. For many working-class Americans, meals like this represented far more than simple food. They represented rest, warmth, and the feeling of finally sitting down after hours of physically demanding work beneath the hot southern sun. Inside old diners, chicken fried steak quickly became one of the most satisfying meals on the menu. The sound itself became unforgettable. Oil crackling loudly in the kitchen, country gravy bubbling slowly on stovetops, coffee cups clattering across counters while waitresses carried huge plates between crowded booths beneath glowing diner lights. Some diners served the dish with mashed potatoes and gravy. Others paired it with eggs, biscuits, or fried potatoes during breakfast hours. And for generations of Americans traveling across highways during the golden age of old roadside diners, meals like this became deeply connected to memories of long road trips, late-night stops, and quiet conversations over endless cups of coffee. Even today, chicken fried steak still feels larger than life, heavy, crispy, comforting. The kind of meal that belongs to another era of America entirely. And maybe that's why old diner recipes like this still fascinate people decades later, because they remind us of a slower country built around small towns, neon diners, and homemade food served without rushing. To recreate a traditional diner-style chicken fried steak today, you would need cube steak, flour, eggs, milk, black pepper, salt, oil, butter. For the gravy, butter, flour, milk, black pepper. First, season the steak with salt and pepper before coating it in flour, egg, and flour once again for a crispy crust. Fry the steak slowly in hot oil until deeply golden brown and crisp on both sides. To prepare the gravy, melt butter in a pan, stir in flour, and slowly add milk while mixing continuously until thick and creamy. Finish with generous black pepper. Serve the fried steak hot with gravy poured over the top beside potatoes, biscuits, or eggs. Crispy, rich, comforting. A diner classic once served across countless roadside restaurants during the golden age of old America. And even now, dishes like this still feel connected to a version of America that quietly disappeared long ago. But while heavy diner meals filled highways and truck stops across America, some of the most memorable recipes were the simple homemade desserts quietly waiting behind glass counters near the coffee machines. Long before massive dessert chains and supermarket bakeries became part of American life, small roadside diners often ended meals with something much simpler: a slice of homemade pie beside hot coffee. And few diner desserts became more comforting than lemon icebox pie. The recipe became especially popular throughout the American South during the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s because it required very little baking and could stay cold inside iceboxes and early refrigerators during hot southern summers. At a time when many homes still struggled with intense heat and limited kitchen ventilation, chilled desserts quickly became favorites inside both family kitchens and roadside diners. Lemon icebox pie felt refreshing, light, sweet. The kind of dessert people ordered slowly while sitting inside cool diners protected from summer heat outside. The recipe itself remained beautifully simple: lemon juice, condensed milk, egg yolks, and a graham cracker crust created a soft, creamy filling with a bright citrus flavor that balanced perfectly beside strong black coffee. And over time, the pie quietly became part of classic diner culture across large parts of America. Many roadside diners displayed entire rows of homemade pies behind glass counters near spinning cake stands and coffee machines. Travelers stopping late at night often ended long highway drives with pie and coffee before continuing through quiet American roads beneath neon motel signs and empty gas stations. For many Americans growing up during that era, the image itself became unforgettable. Waitresses refilling coffee cups, soft jukebox music playing quietly in the background, rain tapping against diner windows after sunset, while slices of pie slowly disappeared beneath warm diner lights. And unlike modern desserts, overloaded with sugar and decoration, lemon icebox pie felt simple and homemade. That simplicity became part of its charm. Even today, many people still describe it as one of the most comforting, old-fashioned American desserts ever created. To recreate a traditional lemon icebox pie today, you would need graham cracker crust, sweetened condensed milk, lemon juice, egg yolks, and whipped cream. First, combine the condensed milk, egg yolks, and fresh lemon juice until smooth and creamy. Pour the filling carefully into the graham cracker crust and chill until firm. Some versions were lightly baked, while others remained fully chilled, depending on regional traditions. Before serving, top the pie with whipped cream and a small amount of lemon zest. Cold, sweet, bright. A classic diner dessert once served quietly across thousands of roadside restaurants during the golden age of old America. And maybe desserts like this still feel comforting because they remind people of late-night coffee, quiet conversations, and the warm glow of roadside diners that slowly disappeared over time. But while pie and coffee became symbols of quiet American diners, some recipes became unforgettable simply because they brought people together around enormous plates of comfort food shared across generations. Long before modern fast food breakfasts became rushed and disposable, many roadside diners across America became famous for serving enormous plates of warm comfort food designed to make travelers feel at home. And few diner recipes captured that feeling better than Hashbrown Casserole. Unlike quick frozen hash browns served today, older diner versions were rich, creamy, slow-baked, and made to feed entire families gathered around large tables during long road trips, Sunday mornings, and late-night diner stops. The dish became especially popular throughout the American South and Midwest during the 1950s and 1960s as diners and family restaurants searched for inexpensive meals that felt homemade while still feeding large numbers of customers. And potatoes quickly became the perfect answer: cheap, filling, comforting. Hashbrown Casserole combined shredded potatoes with butter, cheese, onions, cream-based sauces, and seasonings before baking everything slowly into one bubbling golden dish. Inside crowded diners, the smell itself became unforgettable. Butter melting into potatoes, cheese bubbling along the edges, coffee brewing endlessly beside crowded counters while waitresses carried heavy plates between tired travelers sitting beneath warm neon lights after midnight. For many Americans, dishes like this became deeply connected to family road trips across highways stretching through small towns and quiet countryside diners. Children fell asleep inside booths while parents drank coffee. Truck drivers stopped after hours on empty roads. Families gathered after church on Sunday mornings around giant plates of breakfast food served beside endless refills of hot coffee. And unlike modern restaurant meals designed for speed, diner casseroles like this were built around comfort and abundance. The portions were large, the flavors were heavy and warm, and the atmosphere mattered just as much as the food itself. Even today, Hashbrown Casserole still feels strangely nostalgic for many Americans because it represents a slower version of roadside America that gradually disappeared over time. To recreate a classic diner-style Hashbrown casserole today, you would need shredded hash browns, cheddar cheese, sour cream, butter, onion, cream soup, salt, and black pepper. First, combine the hash browns, cheese, sour cream, chopped onions, butter, and seasonings inside a large bowl. Spread the mixture evenly into a baking dish and bake slowly until the top becomes golden brown and bubbling around the edges. Some diners added crushed crackers or breadcrumbs for extra texture on top. Serve the casserole warm beside eggs, sausage, toast, or black coffee. Rich, creamy, comforting. A diner classic once served across roadside America during long mornings, endless road trips, and quiet late-night conversations beneath glowing neon signs. And maybe forgotten recipes like this still feel comforting today because they remind people of a country where diners felt less like restaurants and more like temporary homes for strangers passing through the night. Many of these diner recipes disappeared quietly over time. Some were replaced by fast food. Others survived only inside fading cookbooks, roadside diners, and the memories of people who still remember late-night coffee beneath glowing neon signs. But together, these meals still tell the story of an older America built around warm kitchens, long conversations, quiet highways, and homemade comfort food served slowly instead of rushed. And maybe that's why forgotten diner recipes still feel comforting today, because behind every old recipe is the memory of people gathering together for warmth, food, and a quiet place to rest before continuing down the road.